I know this is absolutely ridiculous to cover when I currently look like this, but here at Too Mad Too Money, we cover the big news regardless of how we look, regardless of how we feel. This is the big news of the day. The Department of Homeland Security and big tech have been in cahoots with each other. And I know that's a funny word, but this overall situation is very much the opposite of funny. We now have hardcore evidence, hardcore proof that our government and big tech decides what kind of information can or can't get out there, which, if you ask me, seems a little bit sus when you consider, our freedom of speech and that whole little constitutional right. Docs show Facebook and Twitter closely collaborating with the Department of Homeland Security, FBI to police disinfo, plans to expand censorship on topics like withdrawal from Afghanistan, origins of COVID, info that undermines trust in financial institutions. Now, there's certain aspects of that sentence that maybe some of that matters more to you, less to you. I find it all concerning that our government's meeting, they're like, all right, push this out. Let's not push that out, especially because we know some of the information that we were given, such as all this stuff, as time has progressed, we've learned that some of it is straight up lies. In real time, the most relevant story is this whole Hunter Biden laptop thing, and obviously there's a myriad of other things. Now, before we get into it, because it is the major story of the day, I cannot make this more explicitly clear. This is in no way just an issue of Republicans. It's also in no way just an issue of Democrats. My issue in all of this is our government. As you're about to see, this has been taking place with both Republican and Democratic elected presidents. This isn't just one side or the other side. This is both sides, and our government basically stomping on our rights. So check this guy's account out on Twitter, Lee Fang. He has some good write-ups, but we're actually going to get into the whole thing. There's one part that I wanted to quickly share with you. The emails and documents show close collaboration with the Department of Homeland Security and private sector. The previous, who just got let go, Twitter's head of legal counsel, chief legal counsel, whatever her name was, met monthly with the Department of Homeland Security to discuss censorship plans. Microsoft execs texted the Department of Homeland Security, platforms have got to get comfortable with government. Do you know how scary that is? Now, I know at first this all might seem to you, well, yeah, is it really that big of a deal? In my heart, I guess, and also in my brain, I think this is a massively important deal. Think about it. Whatever side of the aisle you're on, there's a good chance that there's been a previous president who you don't like at all. Maybe you hated Trump. Maybe you hate Biden. Maybe you hated Obama, the Bushes, whoever it is. Now imagine that person can control the entire narrative because we let our government somehow get intertwined with big tech. Do you see how dangerous that could be? And you might be thinking, well, no, but the guys that I like, they would be fine. But what about the guys that you don't like? Honestly, let that settle in. I know this is potentially more of a libertarian type of a view, but as soon as you give the government more power, has there ever been a case that they're like, okay, we don't need it anymore, we're going to give it back? And this isn't just a little minute piece of power. If we are all fine with the government somehow, in their own definition of the word, policing with big tech, that is crazy scary. And if you can't see the slippery slope that would send us on, you just got to think about it a little bit more. You got to, I guess, have a bit more imagination. How does the Department of Homeland Security justify its evolving mission from countering foreign terror groups to policing domestic disinfo on social media? Leaked planning doc shows the agency argues false information is the source of radicalization and violence. And once again, before we really get into it, remember that this clearly cuts both ways. So you can check out this whole thing on The Intercept. It is lengthy, but as soon as you have time, I highly recommend that you dive into the entire thing. The Department of Homeland Security is quietly broadening its efforts to curb speech it considers dangerous. The issue here, as I just alluded to, is whose definition of dangerous, because basically whoever the political regime is currently in power, they get to decide what's dangerous. And if you can't see that going to one extreme than the other in a very horrendous way, you just got to think a little bit more. Years of internal DHS memos, emails, and documents obtained via leaks and ongoing lawsuit, as well as public documents, illustrate an expansive effort by the agency to influence tech platforms. The work, much of which remains unknown to the American public, came into clear view earlier this year when the DHS announced a new Disinformation Governance Board, a panel designed to police misinformation, which is defined as false information spread unintentionally, disinformation, which is false information spread intentionally, and malinformation, factual information shared typically out of context with harmful intent. Once again, these are all very high, vague level types of things, so that opens a very large door for them to kind of use their power however they seem fit. That allegedly threatens U.S. interests. While the board was widely ridiculed, immediately scaled back, and then shut down within a few months, if that type of thing happens, I think everyone knows how bad it is. They're like, no, that's crazy. But as you're about to see, they found out a way to make it work anyway. Other initiatives are underway as DHS pivots to monitoring social media now that its original mandate, the war on terror, has been wound down. Once again, another perfect example of we create something, the government has more power, and as soon as it's not needed, they don't give it back. They just transform it because they never want to give power ever back. Whenever it comes to politics, right, left, in the middle, as soon as power is given, they don't give it back. That has never, ever happened. As soon as they get it, why would they want to give it back? They get into this position, left and right. Once again, that's basically a little caveat you can have for this entire discussion. They're there because they're egomaniacs. That's how you get to these levels of politics, is why would you ever want to give that up if that's literally baked into your personality? Obviously, there's a lot of great stuff in here. I once again implore you to read the entire thing, but I just want to give you the main highlights. DHS plans to target inaccurate information on the origins of Rona-19 and the efficacy of Rona-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawals from Afghanistan, and the nature of U.S. support to Ukraine. That's crazy. So let's just pick apart one of those things. I mean, we could literally talk about all of them, but let's just talk about the Rona part. There are many people who were on YouTube who were sharing their thoughts and opinions in the early days, and they got completely taken out. More recently, we saw that Russell Brand got in trouble, and he just had a little misspeaking error and corrected himself fully in the next video. Do you know how nuts that is? And then the scary thing is, way back when this all was happening, the people whose videos were terminated for false information, they were eventually proven to be right. Not all of them. Obviously, there are some lunatics out there. I'm not saying that all of these ideas were great and it was a giant conspiracy. But the truth is, there were people who shared information. They were right, but they were told they were wrong. They lost everything. And now enough time has passed and the world's saying, oh, okay, yeah, maybe you were right. The inherently subjective nature of what constitutes disinformation provides a broad opening for DHS officials to make politically motivated determinations about what constitutes dangerous speech. Once again, high-level adjectives, and they're just using it without a clear, defined, really, I guess, platform that they want to apply this to and how they want to apply it. It's just super high level. And once again, if you can't see how that could be weaponized, you just got to think a little bit more. As you can see, this is a very, very big write-up, and it's honestly pretty scathing to our entire government. DHS considered countering disinformation relating to the content that undermines trust in the financial systems and courts. Now, in my particular field here on Too Mad, Too Money, they're talking about undermines trust in the financial systems. That's because they've lied to us. How many times were we told that inflation is transitory, and then we were gaslighted about the definition of transitory? How many times were we told that, oh, no, literally in real time, they were changing the definition of recession. They're like, no, it's not that at all. And then they're wondering, well, why do we have trust issues? The Fed said, oh yeah, no, the public generically trusts us. They think that's like a high level statement that is still accurate to right now. Do you realize how insane that is? And then yet that might be disinformation if anyone didn't have trust in the financial system that's around us, even though they're the drunken sailors who out of thin air push almost $9 trillion into the system. And dumbasses like me with a fake cap on could just be like, maybe we shouldn't do that. The FBI agent who promised social media platforms to take down the Hunter Biden laptop story continued to have roles in DHS policy discussions. That's a whole nother thing. Between Twitter and Facebook, we know the FBI was involved and they said, nope, it's not a story at all. It's actually completely false, yada, yada, yada. And you've seen all the information now related to the laptop, and it was as true as ever. And these are the people who... There are other U.S. citizens out there that they're like, no, we need the government involved. They have to be involved because, like, obviously they always have our back and they would never lie to us. So, like, we should totally 100% give them all this power. And it feels like lunacy. It feels like absolute lunacy. There's one other thing from this write-up that I want to get into. I will make sure to link this in the video below so you can read the whole thing. It's crazy. I mean, I spent so much time going through this today. You can see I'm just scrolling, but this is the final part. There's growing evidence that the legislative and executive branch officials, are using social media companies to engage in censorship by a surrogate. It is an axiomatic that the government cannot be indirectly what is prohibited from doing directly. If government officials are directing or facilitating such censorship, it raises serious First Amendment questions. I mean, with all the evidence out there, it's pretty evident that that's what they're doing at this moment in time. During the 2020 election, the Department of Homeland Security, in an email to an official at Twitter, forwarded information about a potential threat to critical U.S. infrastructure, citing FBI warnings, in this case about an account who could imperil election system integrity. What's crazy about this, what that big hubbub was about, is this account right here. The Twitter user in question had 56 followers, along with a bio that read, "DM us your weed store locations. Hoes be mad, but this is a parody account," under a banner image of Blucifer, the 32-foot tall demonic horse sculpture featured at the entrance of the Denver International Airport. That is the account that the Department of Homeland Security and Twitter were discussing for potentially messing up and being a threat to critical U.S. infrastructure. That account that I just read to you, that's who they think the bane of our overall democracy is. Like, come on. We are not sure if there's any action that can be taken, but we want to flag them for consideration. The Twitter representative responded, "We will escalate. Thank you." That's crazy. Each email in the chain carried a disclaimer that the agency neither has nor seeks the ability to remove or edit what information is made available on social media platforms. I feel like they just put that in there so they don't get sued to Kingdom Come, because we already know that the algorithm was changed, especially when it came to the laptop story. I mean, that was literally admitted by Zuckerberg, I believe, on the Joe Rogan podcast. When the government suggests things, it's not too hard to pull off the velvet glove and you get the mail first. I don't know what that saying means, and I don't know if I want to, but I think that's the first time I've ever heard that saying. So if you know what pulling off the velvet glove and you get the mail first, what does that mean? I even try to sit here and think about it for a bit. I have absolutely no clue. And I would consider such actions, especially when it's bureaucratized as essentially state action and government collusion with the platforms. If a foreign authoritarian government sent those messages, there's no doubt we would call it censorship. That's the perfect way to really sum all this up, is if another government did it, we would have an issue with it. If the political party who you don't like did it, you would have an issue with it. And in real time, let's be fair, a lot of these allegations are from the current president and the previous president. So both a Republican and a Democrat. And also, even if you don't want to think about it in our politics, if you heard of another government doing it, most likely you'd have an issue. It's just crazy. It's crazy that this is a real thing. And I knew it was assumed by many, many people, but to see it come to reality with such evidence is absolutely ridiculous. Representatives from JP Morgan Chase attended virtually all DHS meetings about federal government efforts to censor disinformation on social media. Are they laying the groundwork for debanking to become an even more mainstream strategy? Here's all the evidence. Once again, this is all coming out in, I guess, current court hearings and a myriad of other things. And if you're wondering, yes, Facebook government takedown portal is still live. The government still can access Facebook and be like, we're not sure if we want that. This was up as of 3 p.m. as I'm filming this on October 31st.